All right, so this question represents all four of the main transition category words. For example, well, that's the category unto itself. So it just means for example. So check. There we go. We know what that means. By contrast, that's but. As such, that's so. Likewise, that's and. Right? So we've got all four categories. For example, but, so, and. And now we just got to figure out what goes in this spot. And notice it's a little weird because usually when we get these, we have capital letters with the transitions because they are starting off a sentence. But that's exactly what's happening here because instead of a period, we have a semicolon. So you can't let that bother you. What does a semicolon do? It's a period. It separates two sentences. So there's nothing about my process that has changed because this sentence happens to be a little weirder grammatically than others. Like it's fine. It's normal. So let's just see what we get. In the late 20th century, scholars directed much discussion toward issues of spatiality. Adherence to quantitative analytical approaches delineated space with the use of GIS spatial technologies. Cultural geographer Doreen Massey defined space as the product of an ever-shifting social geometry of power and signification, focusing instead on socio-political forces. I had no idea what was going on until that last word. But now I'm thinking the answer is probably B. Let's double check though, right? Let's see if I can get this contrast across, right? Adherence to quantitative analytical approaches, delineated space, meaning like the word line is in there. Delineate means to kind of separate out. Separated space with the use of these spatial technologies. But cultural geographer, a different kind of person, Doreen Massey defined delineated space as the product of an ever-shifting social geometry of power and signification, focusing instead on socio-political forces. So the adherents, or people who adhere or follow, support the quantitative approach, used spatial technology, but Doreen Massey, who is a cultural geographer, whatever the heck that means, focused instead on socio-political forces, meaning like humanity stuff. It's basically a math versus kind of English situation here, right? The math people looked at the technologies and delineated it that way. This other person looked at the people and kind of delineated based on, I don't know, demographics or something, who knows. But they're two different approaches, a science approach and a humanities approach to the same problem. But that's the contrast, is it's two different approaches, two different points of view. The word instead is another but word. And so it's really great that popped out at the end to kind of be like, oh, instead of the analytical approach, she has a socio-political approach, right? Clear. And so, yeah, I have no doubt here that that's the right answer. There's a lot of clues showing me that it's a but. The fact that I'm coming with a dumb summary that kind of separates them out is really helpful. And I can tell what they're doing. They're trying to overwhelm you with such difficult vocabulary that you just go, I don't know what's going on. But remember, the point of the dumb summary is to focus on the relationship. So you don't really need to know what's going on. You just need to say, all right, is there a contrast? Are they making a contrast between two things? Is the second thing an example of the first? No, it's not. We can see that it's a second example, not a continuation of some larger point, some example of the first point. It's a new thing. And it's not a so because, again, it's a new thing. It is not caused by the other people's point of view. Doreen Massey has her point of view for her own reasons. I don't know. And so it's not caused by the thing that came before it. And then likewise, again, is an and. Here it's a very strong and where we're going to make a comparison, but we're not saying they're the same. We're saying they're different. And again, the key word here is just instead. So of all the words in this passage, most of you are going to get so worried by the ones you don't know that you're going to start ignoring ones that are very obvious that you do know. You need to know what instead means. It's a fundamental building block of the English language. So yeah, you probably do know what it means, and it gives away the whole thing. This is true whether we're dealing with passages for the transitions or passages for the passage questions. Some of you are going to focus on the words you don't know and get really, really worried. The people who succeed, in my opinion, are the people who don't let that bother them and instead focus on the words they do know and use what they do know to understand the relationships in those passages. That's all I did here, and it worked.